So get this. The whole thing kicks off with Rosa in the middle of some fever dream, grilling this mystery dude like he's on trial, asking, "Did you ever actually love me?" After a beat of pure, awkward silence, the guy's like, "Why are you even bringing this up now?" But my girl just doubles down, her voice cracking as she screams, "Just tell me, did you love me or not?" You could feel the desperation pouring off her. "I need to know," she says, "since you're clearly not gonna say it yourself." She's full-on begging at this point, just pleading, "Do you love me?" over and over. Then everything starts to get hazy, and she can't even make out the face of the guy she's pouring her heart out to. And just like that, Rosa snaps awake. She finds herself sprawled out, wearing way less than she'd prefer, just staring at the ceiling of some ridiculously fancy hotel room. She mumbles to herself, "What the hell was that dream?" But before she can even process that little psychodrama, she realizes she's not alone. Total panic mode. There's a guy sleeping right next to her who jolts awake, clutching his chest like she just gave him a heart attack, yelping, "Jesus, you scared me. What is wrong with you?" And as if that's not enough, some girl on the couch lets out a big yawn and chimes in, "Yeah, what's all the noise?" Rosa, completely spun out, just blurts, "Who the hell are you people and how did you get in my room?" The guy next to her just gives her this look, like she's grown a second head. "Are you kidding me? We were all raging on the rooftop last night, remember?" He reminds her she was the one who said it was cool for them to crash in her suite. He even adds that a few other party animals are still passed out on her balcony. Rosa just rubs her temples, groaning. Seriously? Realizing she must have been blackout drunk, because she remembers absolutely nothing. The guy just sighs dramatically. "Wow, the rumors were right. You really are an ice queen." The girl on the couch pipes up, "Do you at least remember my name?" After a painful pause, Rosa guesses, "Kathy?" The guy busts out laughing. Not even close, and the girl snaps back, totally annoyed. "It's Geneva." Get it right. Fast forward to later, they're at the beach, and the air is filled with the sounds of people having way more fun than Rosa. She's just sitting under an umbrella, dead-eyed, staring at her phone while Geneva sunbathes next to her, rambling on about how this is just a little vacation for her before she has to head back to the real world in a month or two. Another girl flops down with them, teasing Rosa. "You better be using all this hotel's freebies while you can, girl. Especially," she winks, "the good stuff." Some random jock walking by just has to be a jerk, sneering. "No amount of fancy oil is gonna fix that mess on your head." The girl shoots him a death glare. "Shut up, you bald-headed loser. Go play in the water or something." Meanwhile, Rosa's phone starts buzzing. The caller ID says Seo Yaya Eon. She hesitates for a second, then picks up. A guy's voice, John, immediately lays into her. "It's been a month, Rosa. Is this how you treat me?" He whines. "I see your Instagram. So busy, huh? Looks more like you're just gallivanting all over the place." He adds a sarcastic little jab. "What a perfect, dutiful daughter you are." Rosa's face just hardens. "Why did you call, John?" He completely ignores her tone, asking, "So, when are you coming back to Korea?" She tells him she'll probably be back right before the semester starts, then repeats, "What do you want?" He gets all cagey, saying, "Oh, you know, stuff is happening. Fun stuff. You're missing out." When she pushes him for details, he just lets out this weird, nervous laugh. It's hard to explain over the phone. "If you really want to know, you should just come back and see for yourself," leaving her totally in the dark. Geneva, who's been shamelessly eavesdropping, gets this sly grin. "Ooh, that sounded like a man. Is that your dad?" Rosa's reply is quiet and flat. "I don't have a father." So Geneva pivots. "Your Korean boyfriend, then?" "No." Rosa snaps, shutting it down. "Just some guy from college calling me out of the blue to talk nonsense." But after she hangs up, a little worm of worry starts digging in. What if something happened to her mom? She immediately opens her phone and searches for Flora Hotel. Of course, it's this massive, luxury global chain with over 30 spots worldwide. The newest one just opened in Miami. It's got the whole package. Rooftop bar, 5-star restaurant, and a VIP casino that's probably seen some things. And there it is, a picture of Lee Rosa, the 22-year-old daughter of chairwoman Lee Saran, who's been using her social media clout to promote the place. The articles all talk about how she's been a huge boost for sales. Rosa lets out a sigh. Okay, so no public scandal. Nothing's on fire. She tosses her phone aside and just stares up at the sky, but she can't shake the feeling. Maybe there really is something going on back in Korea. She couldn't help but wonder if some real-life romance manhwa drama was finally brewing back home, and she knew that as a potential heir to the family empire, all eyes were already on her. So, she books a flight. When she lands in Korea, her driver is there to meet her, looking surprised. "You're back early," he says. "You usually stay away for the full 2-month break." Rosa just shrugs. Felt a little tired. "Wanted to come home," she says, adding, "Plus, with the Lunar New Year coming up, I figured I'd surprise my mother." Then, after a beat, she asks, all casual, "How is she doing, by the way?" "I didn't tell her I was coming," she adds, "so it'll be a real surprise. And you guys," the way the driver flinches is a total giveaway. He puts on this stiff, fake smile and says through his teeth, "The madam is doing just fine." His tone was so off, Rosa picked up on it immediately. Something was definitely up. But she just pushed it down, thinking, whatever it is, it's not my problem anymore. The car pulls up to the family estate, this massive gleaming palace that looks so perfect it's practically screaming, "We have dark secrets." From the outside, it was all sunshine and flawlessness. But you just know something's lurking in those shadows. Rosa gets out of the car, stretching her arms over her head. "God, I'm beat." She calls out for the butler to grab her bags, but all she gets back is dead silence. And let me tell you, in a house that big, silence is never a good sign. Shopping and, like a queen, decided to leave her haul by the stairs for the help to carry later. But as she breezed in, she clocked a pair of men's shoes by the door. And trust me, they were not a familiar brand. And her stomach just dropped. A nasty little feeling slithered up her spine as she wondered who the hell they belonged to. Tiptoeing up the stairs, she started to hear noises. The kind of faint, rhythmic sounds coming from her mother's bedroom that you pray you're mishearing. Every step was agony. Her hands were literally shaking as she got closer to the door. She paused right in front of it, whispering to herself, practically begging the universe for a sign, any warning at all, before she laid eyes on whatever fresh hell was inside. Steeling herself, she peeked through the crack in the barely open door. And bam! Her eyes went wide and her whole body just seized up. Some dude was on the bed, absolutely devouring her mother's face. The sight hit her like a lightning strike to the chest. For a hot second, she forgot how to breathe, how to think. She was just a statue, her brain refusing to compute what she was seeing. Out of all the messed up things she'd been through, nothing, and I mean times nothing asterisk, prepared her for walking in on her own mother getting her groove back with a total stranger. Then, her mom's head snapped around, and she gasped, pure horror on her face when she saw Rosa just standing there. She started stammering, asking why Rosa was home so early. The guy, who was wearing nothing but a pair of pants and a shocked expression, just gawked at Rosa in dead silence, his face a mask of pure confusion. Rosa's heart was hammering against her ribs as she stared at them, her mind just a swirling vortex of what the actual fuck. In that single moment, the perfect, smooth glass surface of her 22-year-old life started to spiderweb with cracks. Later, Rosa asked, dripping with ice, if she needed to have a little chat with that man outside. And her mother, cool as a cucumber, said yes. Rosa just snapped, asking why she was pulling this crap now. Until this point, her mother had always kept her boy toys completely separate from her life. Her mom just sighed, saying those guys were never real dates. They were just convenient assets. After all, she was Lee Surian, the damn chairwoman of the Flora group. But this time, she purred, Yan Wu was times different asterisk. Rosa arched an eyebrow at different, asking sarcastically if it was because he had some trashy tattoo on his back. Her mom's eyes widened a bit, surprised Rosa had already gotten an eyeful of his ink. She let out this awkward little laugh, saying, "Oh, you know, kids these days all get tattoos." Rosa shot back that maybe kids times do. But why was her mother dating one? Especially a kid with such a god-awful taste in body art. She demanded to know what he even did for a living, or how old he was. Her mother replied, almost bored, that he was 24, and Rosa just froze. She, herself, was only 22. Her heart plummeted as she wondered if her mother was really this thirsty. Before she could unload, Surian cut her off, saying her mother had been alone for nearly 20 years and it must have been lonely. Rosa was thinking, my God, the woman isn't even 50 yet. This is beyond dramatic. Surian continued, claiming times was the one who filled that void in her mother's life. He insisted he was a good guy, and that if they all lived together, he could help heal the emptiness she felt raising Rosa without a father. Rosa cut him off sharp, asking why he was even daring to bring him up. Then Suryan, with that sweet as poison smile, drops the bomb. Mom's new boy toy is officially moving in. The words left my girl Rosa totally stunned. Later, as she was staring blankly at a family photo, Yanwoo slinked into the room, greeting her all polite and asking if her chat with her mom went okay. Rosa shot him a look that could curdle milk and just walked right past him. Yanwoo actually tried to stop her, saying he'd heard so much about her from Suryan and didn't think they'd meet so soon. As she started up the stairs, she called back over her shoulder that she knew her mom wanted them to be one big, happy family. But she wasn't feeling it. Once the semester started, she'd be too busy anyway. Until then, she'd just think of him as the new live-in help, and ordered him not to speak to her. Didn't even wait for a reply, just stormed upstairs. Suryan, who was lurking nearby, just chuckled and told Yanwoo not to mind her, saying, "Rosa's just being frosty for now, she'll come around." Yanwoo just gave this faint little smile, saying he wasn't worried, since she was her mother's daughter, after all. Then he took a step closer to Suryan. Later that night, cut to a quiet bar where Rosa was fuming. She asked Jian if times was what he meant earlier. Jian, totally lost, was like, "What are you talking about?" Rosa basically slammed the table, spitting out that her mom had hooked up with some young stud while she was gone. Jian nearly spit-taked his drink, asking if she meant Chairwoman Lee. When she nodded, he asked about the guy, and Rosa reminded him that he'd said she had business in Korea and had even called her about it. Jian got this smarmy grin and admitted the call was just a prank. He was bored and just wanted to mess with her. Rosa stared at him like he'd grown a second head, but Jian just waved it off, saying that wasn't the point right now. He told her to park it and spill all the juicy details. As annoyed as she was, Rosa knew Jian was the only one she could vent to. She sighed and told him the guy was 24. Jian's jaw dropped, saying that was practically half her mom's age, and then joked that you had to respect the woman for living her best life. Rosa glared daggers at him and demanded to know what the hell happened while she was gone, wondering if he'd heard any gossip. Jian just shrugged, saying it was her house. How would he know more than her? Still, he had to admit, the whole situation sounded less like a relationship and more like the plot of a very spicy and slightly illegal romance manhwa. Asked for the dude's name. Rosa mumbled that his name was Yanwoo. Jian was like, "Never heard of him," and asked what he looked like. You could see Rosa pause, her mind's eye trying to sketch his face. She remembered how he had this whole tragic hero vibe, you know? Kinda unsettling, but also ridiculously magnetic. He was a knockout at first glance, but his eyes held this deep, shadowy gloom, like he was straight out of some angsty romance manhwa, and had seen way too much. She just told Jian he looked like he had more miles on him than his age suggested. As Jian walked her out of the bar, he asked what her next move was. Rosa just quietly said she didn't have a clue yet. As they were passing a hallway, they totally overheard some guy talking. He was asking if any fellas were available right then, explaining that a crew of Japanese executives had just landed. The receptionist asked if they were looking for dolls or dudes, and the reply shot back that they needed the pretty boys. Then one of them pipes up, "So where's Yanwoo?" The receptionist kind of hesitated, but the client just cursed, pissed that Yanwoo had freaking quit. He grumbled that Yanwoo would have been the perfect man for the job. The nervous receptionist said she'd call in whoever could get there fast. The guy then leaned in, asking if it was true. Yanwoo took off with some rich lady. The other guy nodded, saying that was the hot gossip going around the staff, that Yanwoo was the damaged goods type with daddy issues who made older women absolutely lose their minds. Jian, of course, just let out this gross, crude laugh. And Rosa, standing right there, heard every single word. Her whole face just went dark, her vibe turning ice cold. Jian, the idiot, tried to joke that maybe they had him confused with some other dude, but yeah, that punchline did not land. Later that night, Rosa got home, and her own room felt weirdly alien. She kept replaying Jian's lame attempt to cheer her up, telling her not to overthink it, saying it wasn't her style. Easier said than done, obviously. And that's when she heard it, a faint sound, like a private concert starting up in the direction of the master bedroom. She froze solid, her face a perfect mask of "you have got to be kidding me." Standing out on the veranda, she was mentally cursing, wondering how a house worth billions could have walls this thin. She thought bitterly that for $3,000 per square foot, you'd think she could buy her way out of hearing her mom's extracurriculars. She turned toward her door, muttering that she should just go inside, since they probably couldn't hear from in there anyway. But she stopped dead. Her gaze drifted back to the master bedroom door, and that little piece of gossip just echoed in her brain, the type that makes older women go wild. Her chest got all tight as that sneaky bitch, curiosity, started crawling in. As Rosa crept toward the suite, she wondered if her mother had any clue what kind of man she'd really brought home. She figured if her mom had witnessed the kind of intimate services they offered, she'd get the full picture. As Rosa got closer to the room, she locked up, completely paralyzed by the symphony of sin coming from inside. She slowly backed away and collapsed on her bed, trying to convince herself to just sleep it off and reboot her brain. She truly believed that if she just ignored it, it would be like it never happened. She was never the type to get nosy. But the non-stop rhythm section next door was making rest absolutely impossible. Lying there, she was just muttering to herself, "Where the hell are my headphones?" While on the other side of the wall, Yan-Woo was mid-performance with her mother. He whispered, all nervous, asking what if someone outside heard them, pointing out that Rosa might wake up. But Syrian just shot back coldly, telling him not to stop, to ignore everything else, and to just continue the damn show. Yan-Woo's eyes landed on a framed picture of Syrian and Rosa sitting nearby. He paused for a split second, then gave a faint nod, whispering to himself that the show must go on. Afterwards, as breakfast was being served, a spoon clattered under the table. When Rosa bent down to get it, she froze again. Under the table, she saw Yan-Woo's eyes on her. He quickly told her to stay put and that he'd grab it instead. Rosa sat bolt upright, feeling all kinds of weird, wondering what she'd just seen, a strange unease settling over her. It had already been 2 weeks since she got back to Korea, and in that time, she'd noticed how ridiculously comfortable Yan-Woo had gotten in their house. He was using all their stuff like he'd owned it for years. He was super friendly with the staff and, of course, he treated her the exact same way. One day, as Rosa was about to head out for a jog, Yan-Woo asked where she was going. Offering her a cup of warm water, he told her to take it with her since the weather was chilly. But she just blew past him and got in her car. Sitting there, she was grinding her teeth, thinking she had explicitly asked him not to speak to her. Yet, he kept acting all chummy, like he was her dad or some other person with authority over her. She felt completely suffocated and even thought it might be better to just crash in a hotel. But as she pictured it, she could already hear the hotel staff gossiping, asking why the chairwoman's daughter was staying there, what went down at home, and if something was wrong. Honestly, the thought of all that drama was even more exhausting. Rosa sighed, feeling my girl Rosa was completely fried. I mean, this Yan-Woo guy was a whole new level of too much. She just couldn't wrap her head around how her mom could just, poof, produce some random dude overnight, slap a family label on him, and let him move in. So, get this. Rosa's watching Yan-Woo, and he nearly eats it walking past a table. Total grace, right? In her head, she's already pegged him as some ex-bartender, a total nobody her age who crashed the wrong party. And just as she's mentally kicking him out, poof, there he is, on his knees with a rag, cleaning up a spill. Oh, the irritation on her face. You could practically see her thinking he was finally in his proper place, scrubbing floors. Yeah, she's all scrub, peasant, scrub, but then her eyes start to wander. And where do they land? Straight on his backside. Honey, her gaze was glued to the view as he was bent over. Suddenly, this whole scene had more plot than her favorite romance manhwa. She's checking out his form, and bam, the nanny calls his name from the hall. Rosa drops down like she's dodging a sniper bullet, hiding on the first floor like a total weirdo just so she doesn't get caught staring. The nanny wanders in, all, "Oh, honey, let me get that. It's my job." But our boy Yan-Woo politely shuts her down, insisting he can handle a little spill himself. He tells her not to worry about it, and the nanny is just eating it up, gushing about what a perfect gentleman he is before saying she's off to the market. Then she asks if there's anything special he's craving for dinner. Yan-Woo, bless his heart, gets all shy and says the family should decide. The nanny just beams at him, chirping that he's family now too. "You eat at our table, you get a vote," she tells him. You could see the gears turning in his head, totally thrown by the kindness, and he just manages this uncertain little smile. Fast forward to later that night. Rosa's soaking in the tub, completely fried. Her brain is doing overtime on the whole Eugene and Yeonwoo drama, and honestly, the girl is just worn slick. She's wishing for an off switch for her thoughts. Just pure, blissful silence is all she wants. But of course, the universe has other plans. She finally gets out, wraps herself in a towel, opens the bathroom door, and freeze frame. Again, because there's Yeonwoo, standing in the hall, holding one of her lacy bras in his hand. The air got so thick you could cut it with a knife. Her eyes dart from the lingerie to his face. Her cheeks are on fire. And she basically states the obvious. That's mine. And poor Yeonwoo jumps, dropping the thing like it's a hot potato. He's beet red, stammering about how he thought the house was empty, that he was sure she'd gone out. He's tripping over his words, saying, "I know how this looks, but I can explain." Before he whips his head around, refusing to look at her delicious towel-clad body and telling her to get dressed. But does Rosa listen? Nope. She closes the distance, poking a finger right into his chest, getting all up in his personal space with this unreadable look on her face. Meanwhile, Yeonwoo's got his eyes squeezed shut like he's praying for the floor to swallow him whole. He tries to insist again that it's not what it looks like, that he's not some kind of creep, but he doesn't even get the words out before whop. Rosa slaps him clean across the face. The sound echoed, "Girl." It was a scene straight out of a dramatic romance manhwa. Yeonwoo is just stunned, still processing the slap. He immediately starts apologizing again, trying to explain it was all a huge misunderstanding, but Rosa is not having any of it. She cuts him off, ice in her veins, and says, "Oh, I'm not mad. I just felt like hitting you." Then she dares him, asking if he's gonna hit her back or go crying to mommy that her precious daughter smacked him after he got an eyeful of her practically naked. The challenge in her voice was practically glowing. She tells him he's powerless, and as long as he's living under her roof, she's going to make his life a living hell, just because his face annoys her. Yeonwoo just drops his gaze, his expression completely unreadable. She taunts him, saying and not saying a damn word in his own defense. So Rosa laid it out for him, nice and clear. She didn't need a stepdaddy, thanks. He could either walk out on his own 2 feet or get tossed out. His call. And with that mic drop, she turned to bounce. But then she froze solid, because homeboy literally grabbed her leg. She glances down, and there he is, on his knees, clutching her ankle like his life depends on it, begging her to just listen, swearing it was all a huge misunderstanding. His big excuse? He supposedly called out through a crack in the door, heard nothing, and just waltzed in. Reet. Rosa's watching this whole performance, and you can see the gears turning in her head. Her anger started to melt into this weird, tingly curiosity. 'Cause the way he dropped to his knees, it wasn't panicked, it was smooth. Way too practiced, like he'd spent a lot of time in that position before. His voice gets all shaky as he keeps begging, admitting it's his fault and pleading with her not to tell the chairwoman. And then he drops the magic words. He'd do times anything asterisk. Oh, and cue the waterworks. Actual tears welling up, as his hands are trembling. So Rosa, my queen, leans down, grabs his face in her hand, and just stares right into those teary eyes. You could feel the air crackle. For a split second, she almost wavered. But then she just iced him out. Get out. He tried to sputter out something else, his voice cracking, but she cut him off, repeating herself, leave her room. Defeated, he just bowed his head, mumbled another apology, and backed out like a kicked puppy. The second he's gone, Rosa lets out this huge breath. But then she turns and sees a pile of clothes tumbling off her shelf. And it hits her. Crap. It was the laundry. Her mind flashes back to just a little while. Earlier, when the nanny asked Yeonwoo for a hand, the poor woman was swamped and needed to get her own stuff done. There was a mountain of stuff to carry. And of course, Mr. Helpful eagerly volunteered, asking what she needed. So, the nanny hands him the stack of clean laundry and just asks him to take it up to the young lady's room. And yeah, he totally called her name a bunch of times, but my girl obviously didn't hear him. Awkward. Reply. He figured she wasn't home, so he'd slipped in to drop off the clothes, but a few pieces took a nosedive to the floor. He bent over to grab them, and bam, that's when Rosa waltzed out of the bathroom, catching him in the most compromising position ever. Now, standing there alone, Rosa was basically telling herself she didn't give a damn about his little story. She had already fired off enough warning shots. The guy should get the message by now. He was never, ever going to be family. And yet, her mind kept replaying the moment he hit the floor, dropping to his knees so damn fast, crying and begging. Something about it just stuck to her brain. Glancing at her hand, she saw the faint red ghost of the slap she'd given him. Her palm still had a little hum to it. She kept rubbing the spot, a weird, foreign feeling bubbling up. It wasn't satisfaction. Not really. It was something else she couldn't name. The more she scratched at the mark, the more it buzzed, until a tiny bead of blood surfaced. A strange shiver shot through her, a wave of discomfort she couldn't pin down. Later, Surian breezed in and summoned them both to the living room, wanting to know what they'd been up to. The silence was deafening. Rosa was avoiding his eyes like the plague, while Yan Wu sat there, his face a total blank. When she risked a peek, she saw his face was completely clean, no marks. Guess she hadn't swung that hard after all. Surian broke the silence, asking if Rosa was just going to ignore her. Rosa shot back, her voice dripping with ice, asking what she possibly could have done with times when they were just in their own rooms. Her words were the match that lit the fuse. Surian exploded, demanding to know how she could still call him that man instead of using his name. She laid into her for being so disrespectful. Yan Wu, bless his heart, tried to play peacemaker. He promised Surian everything was fine, that Rosa hadn't done anything wrong. But Surian sliced him off, telling him to stay out of it. Taking a deep breath, Surian said maybe the new title wasn't rolling off Rosa's tongue just yet, but she had to try harder. For her own damn sake, she needed to address Yan Wu properly, no matter how much it made her skin crawl. Rosa just seethed, glaring at him. This whole situation was turning into some kind of twisted romance manhwa. It was just so bizarre seeing that smooth, unbothered face next to her mom, like nothing had happened. He looked completely composed, not a hint of humiliation on him. And that, for some reason, really pissed her off. She found herself wondering what it would have been like if she'd put a little more power behind that slap. Surian's gaze then landed on her hand. She spotted the angry red scratches and asked what happened, if she'd hurt herself. Rosa glanced down, quickly mumbling that it was from washing her hands. But what she was really thinking was whether she'd left a mark on his face. When Surian pushed, asking what on earth she was washing off that required scrubbing her skin raw, Rosa muttered coldly that she was just trying to get something dirty off. Across from her, Yan Wu went rigid, his shoulders tightening as he ducked his head. Surian's brow furrowed, but she let it go. She just told her to eat and get it treated later. Rosa gave a quiet nod. The rest of the meal was an exercise in awkwardness, with Surian making these pathetic attempts at small talk. Rosa gave one-word answers while Yan Wu pasted on a weak smile, pretending this was all just another Tuesday night. Afterwards, Rosa wondered if she'd ever deliberately destroyed something she used to desperately want. The thought brought a tiny, wicked smirk to her face. She had to admit, it was a hell of a thrill so good she almost hated that she could even put the feeling into words. Cut to the present. Rosa's at some loud pub, surrounded by friends celebrating the last gasps of freedom before school starts. She hadn't even wanted to come. The plan was to chill at home, but then her mom suggested the three of them have a nice family dinner. Or maybe she could invite a friend over. Yeah, right. To escape that fresh hell, Rosa bailed and joined her friends, figuring a chaotic bar was better than playing third wheel on her mom's date night. Compared to that nightmare, she figured this noisy party was practically a Zen garden. Laughter and shouting bounced off the walls. Someone yelled over the music, "Hey, who's the guy in the red puffer jacket? He looks familiar, but not?" Rosa half-turned as another guy pointed across the table, grinning. "Dude, that's Jian." He nudged his buddy as he called out, "Jian. Man, it's been forever." Then he added, "Your hair got so long, I almost didn't recognize you, bro." The other guy laughed, firing back. "You look taller, man. Been secretly growing or something?" One of the girls nearby asked where Jian was gonna sit, wondering if they needed to play musical chairs, but Jian just waved it off. "Nah, there's a spot right here." He strolled over to Rosa and gave her a playful nudge. "You look half asleep." Rosa just shot him a look, refusing to give him the satisfaction of a real reaction. As the party got rowdier, Jian grabbed a bottle and popped the top with a ridiculously dramatic flair, making everyone laugh. He started pouring drinks with an exaggerated flourish, announcing, "I'm pouring as much as I love you guys." Lifting his glass high, he declared, "A toast to living with love, people." Rosa just watched. Quietly, her thoughts a total mess. So, Seo Yan is the fourth son of Huyang Construction, basically corporate royalty. They'd run in the same rich kid circles forever, but didn't really click until they ended up in the same university department. Rosa cringed, remembering how Yan had busted her reading some trashy article on a scandal, teasing that he never pegged her for a gossip hound like him. He tried to guess her name, that smug bastard, calling her Rose, then Dandelion when she ignored him, cycling through a whole damn flower shop before finally landing on Rosa with a triumphant smirk. Yeah, he was a smooth operator, the kind of guy who could charm the pants off a nun with zero effort. He was stupidly good-looking, and while he played the part of a carefree idiot, he was sharp as a tack when it counted. Their department was crawling with the Silver Spoon crowd, so sticking together was just natural selection. But for Rosa, her connection with John, well, that was a whole other level of complicated. Back in the present, the night was getting sloppy. Someone slurred a suggestion for a second round, and a few drunks cheered for karaoke. Some were into it, but John was clearly somewhere else. Then he felt a subtle pressure against his thigh. It was Rosa's leg, a silent, desperate message. Without a word, he leaned in, his lips brushing her ear, murmuring that they should totally catch up when classes started. The girl next to him blinked, all confused, pointing out he'd just said he was free. John just flashed a killer smile and said something important had just come up, his fingers ghosting over Rosa's sleeve in a secret pact under the table. Later, after ditching the party, John caught up to her on the street, his voice laced with that infuriating, teasing tone of his. "Daddy issues acting up again," he drawled. "You know, trying to screw the stress away isn't exactly healthy." Rosa whipped around, her eyes spitting fire. "Then why the hell did you follow me?" John just shrugged, a wicked glint in his eye. "For you, it's stress. For me, it's just a damn good time." And just like that, they were at a hotel. The second the door clicked shut, he had her against it, his kiss, a bruising, hungry collision. Rosa didn't fight it. She crashed right back. They stumbled towards the sofa in a tangled mess of limbs and desperation. As he drove into her, John whispered, "Your head's not in the game." "What, did you get in a fight with your new daddy?" And bam, just like that, Rosa's entire body went rigid. "Say that again," she hissed, "and I swear I'll knock your teeth out." But John just smirked, pressing closer, his voice a low, provocative rumble. "Want me to show you a real masterclass in humiliating your picture-perfect family?" His words became daggers. "Dragging a stranger home unannounced, then locking yourself in your room like a petulant princess. I have no idea what kind of messed up drama is going on in that house, but you make me morbidly curious." Rosa shoved at his chest, but his grip was iron. For a second, a crushing weight settled deep inside her. That feeling of not belonging anywhere, not even in the one place that was supposed to be hers. She was completely hollowed out, and her breath hitched in a broken little cry, caught between rage and total confusion. "Want to take this to another room for round 2? John murmured, completely clueless. "You're insane," she spat. But this whole situation was so twisted, it felt like a scene straight out of a dark romance manhwa. He just laughed, pressing his advantage. "I bet your new stepdad regrets it. Probably has no idea what a stunningly beautiful disaster his new stepdaughter is." He leaned in. "Now shut up and just feel this." Rosa's face was a frozen mask. But against her will, an image of Yenwu seared itself into her brain, that same infuriatingly calm, placid expression that drove her up the wall. A bitter knot twisted in her gut. "Fine," she muttered, her voice barely a whisper. "If this is what you want, then let's just get it over with." Later that night, the scene snapped to somewhere else entirely. Inside a quiet, private dining room, Sir Yan sat across from Yanwu, the air thick with a formal, almost sterile calm. Sir Yan smiled, a little too brightly, and slid a small, elegant box across the polished table. Yanwu glanced down and saw a simple, masculine ring nestled inside. As he slipped it on, Sir Yan chirped, "Surprise! It's a matching couple's ring, just like mine. Do you like it?" Yanwu studied it for a moment, his expression unreadable. "I don't know much about these things," he admitted. "But it's beautiful. Are you sure I can accept this?" Sir Yan insisted. "Of course. I'm giving it to you, so you have to take it," she said with a little laugh. "Oh dear, I might have gotten the size wrong. Should I exchange it?" Yanwu shook his head. "We can do that later. For now, I'll just wear it on my index finger. Thank you." Sir Yan's smile faltered. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice softer. I wanted to give these to you in front of Rosa, but it's been almost a month, and she still hasn't warmed up to you at all. She let out a weary sigh. She went to a drinking party tonight, which she never does. When is she going to accept that you're her family now? Why does she hate you so much? Yanwu offered a gentle, reassuring smile. Please don't worry, he said smoothly. I'll try harder. I genuinely want to get close to Rosa. The camera then cut back to Rosa's messy reality. John was in the shower. She called out to him, her voice cold and calculating. That bar we were at last week. Your father owns it, right? From the bathroom, John called back. Technically, it's under someone else's name. But yeah, my old man uses it to grease the wheels with his clients. Rosa walked closer to the door. I'll grant you one request, she said, her tone all business. I need you to find out if the Yanwu living in my house is the same Yanwu who works there. And if he is, I want to know how he got that job, and how he met my mother. Meanwhile, the scene shifted once more, back to her mom, Syrian, who tells Yanwu she's not worried about him. She's worried about Rosa. Fast forward to the next day at the house. Syrian's chatting with a gardener, asking if it's okay to move the plants outside. The gardener says, yeah, it's fine. Spring's been super warm this year. Yanwu starts to ask about the whole setup. But before Syrian can even answer, he just leans in and plants a kiss right on her. Then, cool as a cucumber, Syrian just keeps talking about how it's spring. So she's moving her indoor bonsai out to the garden. Yanwu spots a pot nearby, commenting on how chic it is. He thought it was fake at first, but nope, it's real. Syrian gets this little smile and explains it's a black pine she planted herself the year Rosa was born. So, the plant and her daughter are the exact same age. And that's when Rosa chimes in, adding that if that plant so much as droops a little, the caretaker gets fired instantly. Apparently, this is gardener number 6. The poor woman just bows her head and promises to take amazing care of it. Then Yanwu puts his hand on Rosa's shoulder, all gentle, and says she's truly loved. You could literally see her whole body tense up at his touch as she mutters that lately. It feels like her mom cares more about the damn plant. And Syrian, without missing a beat, shoots back that at least the plant is gentle. Hasn't caused a single problem in 22 years. Ouch. Rosa just gives this little dark chuckle and tells her mom not to worry. She's studying her too. Total power move. Just then, her phone rings perfect timing. It's her ride, so she announces she's heading out. Syrian asks if it's her first day of class and suggests they share a ride since she's heading to work anyway. Rosa's like, sure, and poof, they're out the door. The gardener then decides it's her cue to make her exit too, but Mr. Eager to please, Yanwu, calls after her, offering to help move the pots. The gardener politely turns him down, saying it's her job, but you know he's not going to stop there. He asks if she handles the whole massive garden alone. She explains she just does the main house area. The annex is so big it has its own crew. Yanwu just nods along, soaking it all in. Then he offers to help with the simple stuff, whenever he's free, which is apparently all the time. The gardener gets a little flustered, but agrees. And of course, Rosa, who's watching this whole show, from afar, mutters that he's totally doing it on purpose to get close to her. Ugh, the drama is straight out of a romance manhwa. Anyway, later at college, the professor starts the class by saying he knows everyone hates group projects, but business studies and teamwork are basically inseparable. He goes on this whole tangent about how, in work and in life, you have to deal with people you can't stand. And on that cheerful note, he announces that whoever you're sitting next to is now your partner for the whole semester. Rosa slowly turns her head. And guess who's there? Jian. Of course. Later, they're on a bench and Rosa just lets out this massive sigh. She's like, pair up with the person next to you? Are we in elementary school? She's already over it, completely exhausted and just wanting to tap out for the semester. Jian gets this little smirk on his face and tells her to just look over the assignment, basically saying the professor will rubber stamp anything she turns in. Then, after a beat, he brings up what she'd asked him about. You know, digging up dirt on Yanwu. He says it won't be hard. But then he asks the million-dollar question, what's the plan once they know? He points out that whether the guy sold his soul or just his body, her mom, Syrian, probably already knew all the juicy details before she let him move in. Rosa just scowls, saying there's no harm in knowing your enemy. Jian just leans back, all casual, and says, so Jian, being the voice of reason, basically told her if she hated Yanwoo's guts that much, she should just pack her bags and leave. He suggested she tell her mom the campus was too far and she needed her own apartment, adding with a smirk that he only sees his own brother twice a year, and it's absolutely fantastic. His logic? The best way to deal with someone you can't stand is to make them disappear from your life. But Rosa just stood there, her face a total mask. So Jian leaned in, lowering his voice like he was sharing a secret, and asked if she was times sure times she really wanted to get away from him. And just like that, thinking of Sarian, my girl points out that her mom is 48, and if she really put her mind to it, the baby factory isn't exactly closed for business. Jian had to agree, but Rosa hit him with, "So you want me to just leave them to it, right when we could be facing a surprise younger sibling crisis?" Jian just paused, clearly thinking she was getting way ahead of herself, and said he seriously doubted her mom was planning another kid. Rosa shot back that maybe her mom wasn't, but what about Yanwoo? What if his whole plan was to sink his hooks so deep into their family that he could never be removed? She scoffed that a simple, happy-go-lucky guy like Jian, with a perfectly normal, messed-up relationship with his dad, just wouldn't get it. Jian muttered that it sounded more like she was casting a voodoo spell on the guy, but Rosa insisted that he could never understand the kind of crazy, reckless stunts a person who was both emotionally starved and totally unhinged might pull. Which is exactly why she had to dig into Yanwoo's past and find out what his deal was. Jian, ever the helpful one, asked why she didn't just ask her mom straight up. You know, something like, "Hey, you guys aren't by any chance trying to pop out another kid, are you?" Which earned him a look that could kill. Then he grinned and added, "While you're at it, you could ask if they're wrapping it up, too." And, oh boy. Later that day, Rosa tiptoed into her mom's room, thinking the coast was clear. Her mom was at work, and Yanwoo was, who knows where. It's sad, really. Up until last year, she used to crawl into bed with her mom sometimes, and they'd just talk about whatever until they fell asleep. But now? No way. Not in a bed that was practically marinated in some stranger's scent. The very thought of her mother and that man, doing times that asterisk, was enough to make her see red. She walked over to a drawer and found a little box, thinking, well, at least they're using protection. She had to admit, if she'd only seen the matching rings, she would have just been vaguely annoyed. But this? Seeing the proof in black and white or, well, in latex made her feel physically sick to her stomach. Her mind, the ultimate traitor, started playing a movie she didn't ask to see. Yanwoo, tearing open a little packet, sliding it on, and then sliding into her mother. She could almost hear her mom's soft moans as he whispered how good it felt. Rosa let out a scream, slamming the box back in the drawer. She jumped to her feet, clutching her head and kicking the bed, literally shaking with pure rage and disgust. Meanwhile, in a completely different universe, aka the garden, the gardener was thanking Yanwoo for helping her out for the past few days. He just waved it off, saying it was fun, before pointing at a tree and asking if the little orange things were tangerines. They looked super tiny, like they were out of season or something. The gardener just giggled, explaining they were kumquats, a totally different beast. She offered him one, asking if he wanted to give it a try. Yanwoo immediately reached out, plucked one off the branch, and popped it in his mouth, even as the gardener mentioned that the family never really ate the fruit from the garden. His face puckered up and he grinned. Wow, that's incredibly sour. And the way he smiled made the gardener blush so hard she got flustered, yanked the water hose, and accidentally drenched the poor guy. Startled, she started apologizing profusely, saying her hand slipped. She was in a full-blown panic, asking if he was okay over and over. But Yanwoo just laughed, shaking his wet hair and saying it was actually cool and refreshing. He told her not to worry, he'd just go change his clothes. The gardener's cheeks were practically on fire. As she stared at him, she remembered a juicy gossip session she'd had with the other staff earlier that week. One of the maids had mentioned a new male guest in the house, saying he was around Lady Rosa's age and to be nice to him. The gardener had just assumed he was some college kid, maybe a relative of the chairman or a friend of the young lady. But the maid had leaned in and whispered, "Brace yourself. He's the chairman's new lover." The gardener was speechless. A boy toy the same age as the woman's own daughter? Another maid had chimed in that even Rosa was freaking out, saying the whole situation felt like it was ripped from the pages of some trashy romance manhwa. They couldn't wrap their heads around how the chairman could get with a man young enough to be her son. One of them, who'd seen him, described him as tall and devastatingly handsome, saying he should have been a celebrity instead of someone's plaything. Another one snorted that he was obviously just looking for an easy life, calling him a straight-up gigolo. Someone else jumped in bitterly, complaining about how her own son was off in the army, shoveling snow for pocket change. Another staffer agreed, noting the guy was probably her son's age, and joked that she better keep an eye on her boy when he gets back home, because all the good-looking ones go down the wrong path these days. The gardener had cut through their chatter, asking, "But why? Why would the chairman, of all people, choose a man like that?" Her question was met with knowing looks. One of the maids just smirked and said there could only be one reason for something like that. And now, standing in front of a dripping wet Yanwu, the gardener finally understood what they meant. She thought to herself that anyone with eyes could see it. It wasn't just his looks. He had this effortless, magnetic pull. His whole vibe was calm, but every single move he made was coated in a layer of smooth, undeniable charm. Her words. Honestly, she figured anyone with eyes could see it. The man was a walking, talking charm offensive. He had this whole calm, cool, and collected vibe, where every little move he made was just dripping with gentleness. And his eyes? Oh God. They had this delicate warmth that could make a girl's heart do a triple Lutz without him even trying. It was like his sex appeal was baked right into his DNA, the kind that could drive you absolutely insane. And not necessarily in a good way. Watching all this unfold, Rosa was standing there feeling her insides twist into a pretzel. It was a nasty cocktail of disgust and rage. A few days later, Rosa wandered into the kitchen. The second he saw her, Yanwu was all, "Have you eaten? Let me get that for you," even offering to do her dishes and telling the nanny to take off for the day. Smooth, right? But Rosa just placed the plate down on the desk with a thud and stormed out, leaving the nanny totally baffled that she'd even bothered to take food to her room. The nanny knew something was seriously off. That just wasn't our Rosa. Yanwu, playing dumb, asked what she was usually like. The poor nanny stumbled over her words, finally settling on describing her as this calm, mature young lady who never, ever lost her temper. Yanwu then dropped this little gem. "She always seems angry with me," which made the nanny jump a little. She tried to smooth it over, saying it was probably because they weren't close yet, that the young lady could be shy around new people, begging him not to take it to heart. Yanwu just nodded, claiming it didn't bother him. But you know the thought had burrowed into his brain. Later, Syrian breezes into the house, already glued to her phone. She's going on about how this time the event would be at her villa, just like the last one, only she was planning to blow it up, make it way grander. She even casually mentioned that Assemblyman Young was backing her. Tossing her bag to Yanwu like he's the help, she starts changing while still on the call, barking orders at some President Seo to get the merchandise ready. She even adds that if he's planning on showing up, he better give her a heads up. Finally hanging up, she lets out this huge sigh, complaining about how tired she is and that she needs a bath. Yanwu, ever the curious one, asked what the call was all about. Syrian just shot back that she was planning on having some guests over soon. When he pushed for a reason, she basically told him to mind his own business. Curious. Yanwu sighed, saying it looked like she was about to get even busier. And here he was, already feeling neglected. Syrian just smirked at him, asking if that was a complaint she was hearing. He just gave her a faint smile and closed the distance. Stepping right into her space, he purred, "And if it is, are you gonna comfort me?" Before she could answer, his mouth was on hers, and his hands were already on a reconnaissance mission under her shirt, finding and undoing the clasp with expert precision as his lips blazed a trail down her skin. Downward. That feels good," Syrian murmured, urging him on with a wicked little half-smile. But then, in a flash, she grabbed the back of his neck, her grip surprisingly tight, her voice a strange, soft whisper. "You look so pretty today," she cooed. "Why are you so damn pretty?" Her words made Yanwu flinch, a little shiver running through him. You really think so?" he stammered. Syrian's smile sharpened as her hand struck out, landing a solid flick right on his main attraction, whispering, "You're just bursting with charm." A wave of white-hot pain shot through him as he groaned. She tightened her grip on his arm while Yanwu fought for breath, his whole body tensing up from the stinging shock. He stumbled back, coughing, and she just let out a little laugh, calling him a baby before casually sitting on the top step. "So, how was your day?" she asked. Yanwu, still recovering, just replied, "I merely existed." Syrian then mused that since she got home late, he must have eaten with Rosa, asking if things were awkward. Yanwu clarified that they hadn't eaten together at all. Rosa had decided to eat by herself somewhere else. Cut to a high-end boutique later on. Rosa was telling her mother they could have gone shopping without her. Suryan just waved it off, explaining there was an event she had to go to, so they could just call this prep work. Besides, she added, that dress looks nice. You could just feel Rosa's discomfort, finding it totally bizarre to be shopping with her mom and her mom's much, much younger boyfriend. One of the sales associates started gushing over Suryan, saying her figure was just incredible and that their new line was all about elegant silhouettes. They cooed that Suryan would look like a total princess in the outfit. Suryan glanced over at Yanwu, who smiled and laid it on thick, agreeing that yes, she truly would look like a princess. Rosa clenched her jaw so hard you could practically hear it, fighting the urge to just smack him. Right then, Suryan's phone buzzed. She let out a soft curse, saying something had come up at the office and she had to leave immediately. Rosa asked if she was going to finish shopping first, but Suryan shook her head. We've only bought my clothes so far, and since they cleared out the whole store just for us, it would be rude to leave without buying anything else. She told them to finish up and come home after. But before walking out, she turned to Rosa and dropped a bomb. Oh, and pick out something suitable for Yanwu, too. Rosa just stood there, frozen for a second, completely stunned by the request. Suryan added, since you know my taste so well, you can dress him up nicely and bring him to me. Rosa just stared after her, unable to believe what she'd just heard. The idea of choosing clothes for her mother's boyfriend was making her skin crawl. But, how could she say no? She kept thinking about what her mom said, about knowing her taste. And yeah, she knew her mother's type, but she was starting to realize it wasn't just times a times type. She'd always prided herself on knowing her mother inside and out, but now she was wondering how much her mother really understood about her. Her mind drifted, remembering her mother giving her a toy once, wrapped up so perfectly in a little box, a simple gesture that used to be everything. Meanwhile, Yanwu was over by the mirrors, adjusting his glasses while trying on a few outfits, looking like the male lead in some dramatic romance manhwa. Rosa watched him in silence, her teeth worrying her nails as one of the attendants noticed a tricky tie and offered to help. As the assistant carefully fixed the knot, Rosa's mind flashed back to a dark memory, the exact same kind of tie, once tied tightly around the neck of her teddy bear. The sight of Yanwu looking so perfectly put together just made her feel even more sick to her stomach. And scene change, we're at a pub where some new guy found himself getting scouted by a cheerful girl asking if he was new to the scene. He just smiled politely, saying he was excited to work with her. The girl just giggled, commenting on his eager tone and calling him cute, deciding right then and there to pick him for the night. Another guy jokingly complained, asking if she was really ditching him just because a fresh face showed up. At the reception desk, a woman was glued to a monitor when Jian walked in, calling out for Nuna. She turned, surprised to see him, and her eyes immediately went to the young gentleman he had with him. She wondered out loud what brought him to their neck of the woods. Well, if it isn't our youngest gentleman gracing us with his presence, she teased. What brings you here? Should I call over some pretty girls for you? John quickly shot that down, saying his father would have his hide if he stayed too long, insisting they were just there for a quick drink and to say hello. The woman just giggled and asked John if he knew any handsome guys who didn't have any money, suggesting he should bring them by. She said they'd pay those guys a good hourly rate just to chat, not even to lay a finger on anyone. Jan just smirked, saying that among his friends, he was the best-looking one, though his one fatal flaw was that he actually had money. As the girl told him to watch his tone, clearly amused, Xian looked around, remarking that all the guys working there seemed unbelievably handsome. He repeated himself, questioning why every single man looked like a model. The girl just replied, the best-looking one we had already cleared his debt, and disappeared. Jian raised an eyebrow, curious how someone in that business could ever pay off that kind of debt. The girl explained that a VIP client had requested him exclusively for over 2 months, and the money must have poured in from there. She added that there was no way Yanwu could have earned that much in only 6 months otherwise, since the VIP clients were handled directly by the director and nobody knew the details. Who the hell that woman was he'd left with? She was muttering under her breath that if she ever laid eyes on that dude again, he was a dead man walking. Jian literally felt a shiver go down his spine. All he could think about was poor Rosa, knowing that if she ever got wind of this story, she would probably pass out cold. He even wondered if he should join the manhunt, trying to piece together a mental image of this mystery man. The scene then snaps back to Yan-woo, who flashes a smile at the sales assistant after she's done helping him. And girl, she completely froze, turning into a flustered, stammering mess before offering to get him tea while he waited. The man's charm is a lethal weapon. Yan-woo just thanked her sweetly. Then he calls out to Rosa, reminding her it was already 5 o'clock and asking if she was heading out, suggesting they grab a bite before going in. Total silence. He tried again, but she just snapped, ordering him not to talk to her. Yan-woo, with that infuriatingly gentle voice, said he was just trying to get to know her over a simple meal, nothing more. But then, out of nowhere, Rosa calls him Dad. And honey, the entire store just stopped. The assistants were side-eyeing each other, whispering, "Did I hear that right? Who did she just call Dad?" Realizing her slip, Rosa just exploded, asking if he was ever going to stop hovering around her. She demanded to know if he seriously thought she could just pretend like nothing was happening. She told him to just stop, admitting she was barely holding it together. Yan-woo just lowered his eyes for a second before looking right at her, his voice dropping to a low murmur, saying she talked a big game about not caring. "And yet," he said, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips, "you keep giving me an opening." Rosa just stared back, her eyes as cold and empty as a winter sky. Right then, the assistant came back with their stuff, but Rosa wasn't waiting. She snatched her bag and walked out without a word. Her mind was a damn racetrack, replaying every encounter with him. The way he was with the housekeeper, the gardener, even her own mother, especially her mother. She couldn't shake the feeling that her most precious toy was being passed around, manhandled by everyone. Her thoughts drifted to that moment Yan-woo had asked her about Shrian. That moment had completely rattled her. She remembered how close he was, the heat of his breath on her skin, and how something inside her twisted into a knot of confusion and something else. It was then that the most painful truth hit her like a ton of bricks. She and her mother had the exact same taste in men. This whole situation was straight out of some twisted romance manhwa. Just as she was processing that nightmare, her phone started blowing up. It was Jian. He'd sent a bunch of texts, reminding her how she'd promised to grant his wish if he did that task for her. Back in his room, Jian was spilling all the tea to Rosa, telling her that after Yan-woo went dark, even his manager was claiming she had no clue where he'd vanished to. He asked what she thought, saying to him, the writing was on the wall from the get-go, but judging by the timing of it all, it was starting to feel suspiciously like the mystery man was times her times Yan-woo. As he was saying this, scrolling through pics of fancy dresses, he noticed she'd gone completely silent. He was like, "Hello? You still there?" Jian reminded her he'd told her everything, and now he was getting weirdly invested in this old man. He quickly corrected himself, realizing the guy was only 2 years older, joking that maybe he should call him Big Brother instead. He pointed out that he had never, ever seen her this hung up on anyone before. But before he could get another word in, and then, a crash on the other end of the line that sounded expensive. Jian, bless his confused little heart, is all, "Rosa? Babe, you good?" While on her end, a phone met a mirror in a very violent, very final way, echoed through the room. And there stood Rosa, having a full-blown flashback. We're talking a speeding car, the whole 9 yards, a cinematic crash playing in her head. She just whispers that she'd been in a car wreck before. Jian, remembering the high school drama, is like, why are we digging up ancient history? But Rosa, bless her, just mumbles that this feeling, right now, was like getting flattened all over again. And yeah, it hurt like a bitch, but apparently, it was the slap of reality she needed. Cut to the garden, where the gardener is fussing over these tiny kumquats, thinking about how they're basically just lawn ornaments, cute, bright, and totally useless. Because, get this, the chairman and his precious daughter wouldn't dare eat something from their own yard. So she's always stuck cleaning up the perfectly good fruit before it rots. The injustice of it all, right? All that fresh, juicy potential going in the trash. But then she sighs, remembering it's not her circus, not her monkeys, and goes to grab a sack to deal with the mess. And as she's walking, she's thinking, hey, where's my daily dose of eye candy? Because Yan-woo, the resident hottie, used to pop by every single day to help out and, just look pretty. She figures maybe he's out, but that's weird since he's usually attached to the chairman's hip. So, Assuming he's lurking somewhere inside, she heads for the shack. And the moment she opens that door, total freeze frame. Because there's Yanwu, passed out on the couch like a damn sleeping prince. Her heart does a little pitter-patter as she's whispering, "What the hell is he doing in times here, asterisk?" I mean, can you blame her? It was hard to process. Just how stupidly gorgeous he was up close. We're talking features so delicate they'd make a supermodel weep. She's just staring, half in awe, half amused, thinking the chairman is a complete idiot. Like, my guy is keeping this perfect, living doll locked up in his mansion. Seriously, what a damn waste. Hiding a man built like that from the rest of us? Criminal. But then again, she figured, a guy that fine probably comes with some complicated baggage. And after spending time with him, she knew he wasn't some sleazy player. He was the quiet, intense type you'd find in a top-tier romance manhwa he had ever laid eyes on. Even now, he looked like some kind of sleeping god, all peaceful and way too tempting. She tilted her head, like, why would this dude just pass out in the one place he knew she'd be? It was all there, his fake innocence, that polite act, the sweet way he talked to her. Honestly, you couldn't totally blame a girl for wanting to reach out and touch the masterpiece. She had to admit, this man knew exactly the kind of chaos he caused in a woman's brain just by breathing. Seriously, what kind of life leads you to becoming the boy toy for a woman old enough to be your mom, especially when you're only 24? Still, God, he was breathtaking. She quietly wondered if she'd ever see anyone this ridiculously handsome again. Her hand trembled a little before it moved forward. The second her fingertips grazed his cheek, feeling that warmth bloom against her palm, Yanwu stirred. And then, bam, without a warning, he caught her fingers right between his lips, nibbling on them gently. The gardener absolutely froze, letting out a sharp gasp as his tongue darted out, tasting her skin. For a split second, she didn't even try to pull away. Her pulse went wild, and she actually pushed her fingers back into his mouth, trembling at the wet heat of it all. Then, a loud crash from outside shattered the moment. She yelped, yanking her hand back like she'd been burned. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she realized what she'd just done. She scrambled backward, horrified with herself, whispering, "What the hell was I thinking?" She bolted for the door, stumbling out into the open corridor, only to run smack into Rosa. And of course, Rosa's eyes were like chips of ice, her face a total blank. In a voice flat enough to serve drinks on, she asked, "Working hard today?" The gardener just stammered, forcing a wobbly smile as she squeaked out a greeting. Before she could spew another word, Rosa moved to walk right past her, but the gardener, in a total panic, blocked her path. Rosa just raised a perfect eyebrow and asked, "What are you doing?" My girl quickly sputtered that if Rosa needed something, she could get it, making up some lame excuse that it was a dusty mess inside and probably dangerous for her. Rosa's glare could curdle milk. She bent down, picked up a shovel from the ground, and pointed it right at the gardener. She cooed that she'd found it just lying there and wondered if it belonged here. The gardener lunged for it, apologizing all over herself, saying she just put it down for a second. She swore she was sorry if it was in her way. Rosa's voice got sharp. "Oh, it was in my way." She said she hated seeing things just left lying around, rolling on the ground like they had no owner. The gardener ducked her head, promising to be more careful, and tried to escape. But just as she turned, Rosa's voice cut her off. Was it fun? Taking a little secret bite when no one was looking? The words sliced right through her. The gardener froze solid, her breath gone, as she nervously asked what she meant. Rosa held up a piece of fruit she'd picked, explaining she never planned to eat it, but figured it might taste different if it was stolen. The gardener, shaking now, mumbled an apology, saying the fruits were just sitting there. She added that a few wouldn't be missed since they were just for decoration anyway. Rosa stared her down with that cold, terrifying look before saying quietly, "You have a point. You can go now." After the gardener scrambled away, Rosa slipped into the storage room and found Yanwu, dead to the world. She looked down at him and muttered that her mother's lover was nothing but a pretty gigolo on display. Taking his hand, she mocked him. Appa, whispering about what a pathetic little thing he'd become. The scene then flashes back to the past. A younger Rosa sits in a car, her eyes completely vacant. Surian complained that the trip was taking forever and their daughter might get carsick. A guard leaned forward and respectfully told the chairman they were almost at the estate. Surian then promised Rosa they'd be there soon, telling her to just wait patiently while her mother handled her business. Rosa just numbly agreed, which got her a good girl from Surian. Her gaze drifted out the window, landing on a little boy playing all by himself near the gates. Back in the present, Rosa was snapped out of her daze by Jian's voice. They were in a college lecture hall. He was waving his dead phone in her face, whining that it had died. He asked what she was thinking so hard about and why she wasn't checking her DMs. Then he shoved the phone at her, demanding she pick an outfit since she was the one wearing it. He griped that he'd just survived an intense solo tournament the day before, and this was his final, heroic choice for her. Rosa just chucked a book at him, making Jian yell that she promised to grant him one wish. Rosa looked completely over it and asked when she ever agreed to wear something so ridiculous. Their bickering finally got the teacher's attention, who yelled at them to shut up, saying class was over and they should stop making a scene. He added that if they had that much time to squabble, they could follow him. He needed help organizing supplies for the seminar tomorrow. Later, inside the storage room, Jian groaned, looking at the mountains of boxes. Why is there so much crap? He grumbled that the teacher totally lied, saying it would only take 10 minutes. He muttered that if Rosa hadn't been lost in her own angsty romance manhwa, they'd have been done ages ago. Rosa shot back a was not, but Jian just steamrolled her, insisting he was the one doing all the work, picking, buying, and even dressing her up. She cut him right off, telling him to stop whining in her ear. Then Rosa, completely deadpan, says the kind of wish she wants is something useful, like getting tickets to an exclusive event. Jian just smirked, teasing that what he really wanted was a personal invitation written all over her body. Rosa groaned that his line was so cheesy it was a biohazard and told him to go fetch some water so she could wash her ears out, pouting like a pro. Then, bam! Jian suddenly yanked her into him, wrapping his arms around her waist and pressing his lips right up to her ear. Rosa flinched, all like, "What are you doing?" And Jian just grinned, saying, "I'm washing your ears." And then the little devil actually licked her ear, making her totally squirm. She gasped, cursing again as he gave her earlobe a playful little bite, his breath all hot on her skin. He purred that her voice was absolutely gorgeous when she made those little noises, that just hearing it made him lose all self-control. Rosa tried to pump the brakes, reminding him they were still at times school times and this was way too risky. But Jian just held up a small key, saying the professor gave it to them so they could lock up when they were done. Oh, my girl realized then. This sly fox had the whole thing planned out. In moments like these, he always knew the one simple trick to make her cave. His lethal combo of pure confidence and perfect timing. Jian whispered that they'd never christened a classroom before, asking if she didn't think it sounded a little thrilling. He said that doing things you're not supposed to is always way more fun anyway. A second later, Rosa found herself on the table, completely swept up in his pace. Jian was thinking that for a girl who had everything in life, the only thing she seemed to be missing was a little trouble. He praised her softly, saying her skin felt like silk under his hands, and that he loved how her body coiled up so tight when he held her. He could feel every little muscle tremble, way more clearly than with anyone else. Rosa, flushed and totally flustered, just snapped, "Can you just do it already and stop talking so much?" Jian just chuckled and told her to play along. He wanted her to tell him if there was anything about him that got her engine running. Rosa hesitated, and you could just see the wheels turning. I mean, yeah, there were things about his body that did the trick, but she'd rather die than actually say it out loud. When she stayed silent, Jian teased her, reminding her he'd been naked in front of her about 1,000,000 times. Trying to hide her beet-red face, Rosa finally muttered that his equipment was huge. But Jian just scoffed, asking if that was the only thing she noticed about men. Rosa rolled her eyes and said anyone with eyeballs could tell he worked out. Wasn't that obvious enough? What else did he want her to say? Jian just laughed, still holding her tight, and told her to give him her hand. When she did, he placed it on his back, telling her to appreciate the architecture and show a little respect for the masterpiece. Then he leaned down and kissed her, deep, his words basically melting right into her mouth. For a moment, everything went blurry. The tension in the room got thick, their movements slow and deliberate, like a scene straight out of a spicy romance manhwa. But as Rosa closed her eyes, another face flashed in her mind. Yan Wu's, the guy she'd slapped earlier. Her breath hitched, and this weird, awful feeling twisted in her chest. Jian called her name, his voice all rough and needy, completely oblivious to her inner turmoil. He let out a soft groan as her nails dug into his back, her cheeks flushed, bright red. Jian started to ask what Rosa was doing and if she was trying to claw him, but she climbed on top of him, asking if she could just slap his cheek. Once, just to, shock him. Jian, totally startled and uneasy, asked if something was bothering her and suggested they talk. But Rosa just denied it, saying nothing was wrong. She just wanted to try hitting him. Jian was completely thrown. This was so not her. She had never been the type to talk about trying new things in the middle of it all. She'd been like that since their very first night together. That night, Jian had been all, "Are you sure this is okay?" While Rosa had been silently wondering if this was what imprinting felt like. It was definitely awkward for Jian, sleeping with a girl he'd known since middle school. Still, he told himself they could get to know each other bit by bit. Jian had paused, about to ask if maybe they should start dating, but Rosa interrupted him, saying it had been more fun than she expected and they should do it again sometime if the timing worked out. Jian had just been left there, totally stunned by how casual she was. And somehow, that weird dynamic had continued for 2 years. Still, when it came to Rosa, he often had no idea how to describe her. She always treated intimacy like it was just a fun game, nothing deeper. Jian thought she seriously lacked curiosity. He, on the other hand, had a whole list of things he wanted to try. He'd even thought about suggesting some playful ideas, like a little rope play or other kinds of role play, in a heartbeat. And the absolute irony? Getting slapped was literally on his bucket list. He was just waiting for the perfect dramatic moment. But now, out of nowhere, she's times the one asking to smack him. John's just like, wait, what? I mean, fair is fair, right? He was the one begging for it back at school, so she should get to call the shots now. But still, he could not figure out what wire in Rosa's brain just snapped. What kind of personality transplant did she just get? And before he could even finish the thought times, whop! Rosa's hand connects with his face, hard. The sound just hangs in the air, and suddenly her breathing is all heavy. John's cheek is glowing fire engine red, and he's just frozen. And of course, because this is basically a romance manhwa, that's the exact moment a few classmates show up, knocking. Why's the door locked? We need the speaker. And without missing a beat, Rosa asks Jian if his times rod times is stuck, telling him he better pull it out. Meanwhile, outside you can hear them. Is the door jammed? And just try yanking on it. Oh, the delicious, delicious misunderstanding. So, some genius out there pipes up that the key's probably in the supply room on the 3rd floor, sending them on a wild goose chase. Meanwhile, locked inside, Jan was milking every last second of this private moment with Rosa. He pulled her in tight, his hands mapping out her chest, teasing her until his name was a desperate little whimper on her lips. Then, the dude actually checks his reflection in the camera and has the nerve to whisper for her to take it easy, worried she might scratch his precious skin. Rosa, bless her, fires back that he was the one who practically begged her to let loose on him. Jian just chuckled, admitting he'd always wanted to see what that was like, at least once. But then Rosa just stopped, the image of Yanwu's stunned face flashing in her mind. She mumbled that, for her, the payback wasn't as sweet as she'd imagined. It just felt wrong, and she declared that from now on, they were done with games like that. Jian just blinked, like he couldn't process the words. You could tell he was already itching for a repeat, even saying he loved it when she was so brutally honest. When Jian casually suggested she trim her nails, Rosa shot back that long nails were pretty and asked if he couldn't just, endure times it for her. He let out this little laugh, telling her she didn't have to flip the happy switch on so suddenly. Later that night, Rosa stumbled home, feeling completely wrecked. Her body was one big ache, and all she wanted was to collapse, but the sound of the television droning from the living room stopped her. She let out a tired sigh and peered over to see Yanwu, sprawled on her couch, totally engrossed in a movie. The way he was sitting there, you'd think he paid the mortgage, lounging around like the king of her castle. But as she got closer, she saw something that made her do a double take. Yanwu's eyes were red-rimmed, with actual tears tracking down his face. He was full-on crying at the movie. Rosa just stood there, stunned that anyone could get this worked up over a story so cheesy and predictable it could have been ripped from a live-action times romance manhwa asterisk. She watched silently for a beat before Yanwu finally noticed her. He jumped, frantically swiping at his face, asking when she got in and if she was just back from school. Rosa just crossed her arms, cutting straight to the chase. "Why are you crying?" Yanwoo got all flustered, swearing he had no idea. He claimed he was just watching, and the waterworks just started. His voice was all shaky as he tried to laugh it off. Bless his heart. Then, in a desperate attempt to change the subject, he asked if she'd eaten and offered to whip something up for her. For a second, the only sound was the TV. Yanwoo gave her this tiny, defeated nod and said he'd just go to his room then, and to call if she needed anything. He started to walk past, but Rosa's voice, low and quiet, stopped him dead. "I haven't eaten yet." Yanwoo froze right there, mid-step, looking like he'd just been completely and utterly checkmated.